I'm glad they went through all that early season plot to build up a reason for not using the spore drive, considering it may be damaging to the habitat of the Justep. Still using the spore drive then. Hello, Rick here with a spoiler review of Star Trek Discovery Season 2 Episode 12, Through the Valley of Shadows. Because time's all messy, let's start with my summary. I think I might be getting acclimatised to the fast pace and levels of action in Discovery, as these scenes are frequently not doing it for me. I'm getting way more involved with the quieter character moments of late, and I don't know if that's good or not. If nothing else, it's a sign that pretty much all the actors involved can support a scene by their talents, so that's good. The show is leaning heavily into a grimmer tone as we approach the section of the narrative where things are looking bleak for our heroes, but unlike Season 1, this feels more earned as I actually know and care about them more than I did before. We got to see a little of the new D7 design and I really like it. The silhouette is readily identifiable, unlike a lot of previous designs Discovery has opted for, and the ship itself looks like a slightly more rugged, prototype version of the classic vessel, which is to be expected as it's a new design for the Klingons. The plot for this episode is, as usual, split into two, with Discovery, Klingons and Pike travelling to Borath and Burnham and Spock travelling towards a suspicious Section 31 vessel. Is there any other kind? I'll start with the Klingons in this episode. L'Rell and Tyler's moments are competently acted, though it's been a long time since we've seen them, and I thought I'd be over how the Klingons look, but I just can't seem to shake it. Sorry, had to mention it. Won't mention it again. Borath has long been a spiritual retreat for the Klingons, as its system star was the one Kahless pointed to before he died or ascended. It is the location prophesied for his eventual return, and as such houses a monastery of monks who are indeed above the oversight of even the Chancellor. So I'm of two minds when we are asked to accept it as the location of a natural deposit of time crystals. The whole idea behind them is that they cannot exist in our realm of reality, so a natural cave of them is a bit hard for me to swallow. Especially as it's suggested to be another reason for the monastery there, and there is a whole unmentioned sect of time guardians who protect them. I get retcons are a thing, but Discovery is making so many changes, even to its own lore, so I'm finding it a little taxing. On the flip side, it does add weight to the prophecy of Kahless' returning, as these crystals appear to distort time rather drastically around them, so perhaps some hold the belief that this is how Kahless will miraculously reappear one day. And the presence of the crystals is not common knowledge, it seems, as Vok was unaware of them too. Ternavik is a pretty minor character overall, but served to promote a powerful scene towards the episode's end between L'Rell and Tyler, where they learn the name he chose for himself. I initially thought perhaps he was Vok's father, what with the albino coloration and the cranial match. On to the control plot for this episode. My first thoughts on when they arrived at the Section 31 ship and found the crew floating in space was that this was an apparent trap. Beaming aboard a survivor, again I considered the idea that Lieutenant Grant was a control convert. During the events unfolding, that suspicion did decrease somewhat, but once the idea was there, it dampened the shock when it was revealed that he was a puppet. We also get confirmation this episode that a person that Control infiltrates is completely killed. Leland, Grant, both dead, and effectively meat puppets for a swarm of nanobots. The Section 31 ship was indeed a trap, and originally I was thinking, oh how convenient that Burnham happens to be the one who went, and this was all very convoluted. Looking back on it, it was still convenient for Control that it occurred the way it did, considering Burnham was the target, but even if someone else arrived, they would have still brought on board the survivor, and once word reached Burnham that it was a former colleague, she likely would have met with him. Still convoluted, but Discovery is hardly alone in following that trope, though it is still a fault. That being said, I'm still not completely on board with Control's motivations. It's acting too much like an intelligent organism than a compilation of algorithms, especially when puppeteering someone. It's very chatty and enjoys villain monologues. Why? There was no need for Leland Control to maintain its cover when it beamed down to assault Dr. Burnham directly. That made sense. But this time, it takes so long to discuss things with Burnham, taunts Spock for his nerve pinch. It just seems very inconsistent, and I preferred it when it didn't have a voice and was more of this ambient will, hidden and manipulative. Though the best of this episode for me came from Pike. He had a lot of involvement in this one and some truly chilling scenes. On Boreth, he witnesses his future, the training accident that leads to his crippling condition in the not too distant future. The eerie corridor, the subtle sounds of the respirator and the out of focus chair sliding into view all culminated in a trippy visage of him seeing his future. A truly chilling line was when he says that it was a future he hadn't foreseen for himself. I think this is very potent, as I believe most act as if they will live a full life. Most probably can at least imagine themselves being killed or the like, but to witness the complete crippling future of being trapped in your own body, that's horrifying. It makes sense for Star Trek to allude to his future repeatedly, as it is something set in stone and slowly closing in. In continuity, it was about the only thing we knew of him, and this series has gone out of its way to flesh out his character and done it very well. This vision serves as a sudden, startling reminder and contrasts with the Vina talk from earlier in the series. That made his life on Talos softer. This element of foreknowledge paints his future as more of a horrific but heroic sacrifice, rather than a tragic accident. I mean, it was always a heroic sacrifice. He got a Medal of Valor named after him, after all. But this amplifies it. To me, it didn't need to, but for viewers of the show who are unaware of Pike or have never seen the original Menagerie, well, there you go. Now you get what all the Trekkies were on about. Finally, we get some good progress on the Culber-Stamets relationship, and this time it's being reconciled by Reno of all people. I like her attitude. In fact, I like all three of them in this series, especially with how similar they can be despite their differences. All three of them come off as varying levels of blunt and compassion, but basically with similar outlooks. Finally, the teaser of Discovery being self-destructed. Well, it wouldn't be Trek without a self-destruct fake-out. My bet is that they are going to either bluff Control into a standoff, or use the warp core explosion to power the time crystal. Can we rename them? I feel like TNG would have called them temporal lattices. Anyway, thanks for watching this review, and I've got to ask, anyone watching Discovery who hasn't seen the original series, what do you think of Pike's future? Or have we all seen TOS here? Just curious. Thanks again. I've been Rick, and until next time, goodbye.